Oh, yeah, this has to be said. And you're darn straight, I'm about to say it. But before I do, just to satisfy all the critical theory, critical race theory, immutable characteristics determining moral authority, loving people, let me just point out the fact that my mom and dad were both born and raised in Egypt. Yes, Egypt. North African country, considered to be Middle Eastern. I represent 1% of the population in the United States of America, and I get extra moral authority according to your crazy beliefs because I fall under the American with Disabilities Act. So let me say what has to be said because I'm going to say it. Black Lives Matter is to black people what Hamas is to Palestinians. And let me say that again. Black Lives Matter is to black people what Hamas is to Palestinians. Let's think about what Black Lives Matter is doing. First of all, they don't care about black lives. If they cared about black lives, they would ignore the 170 black people or so that have been killed by law enforcement officers while they were unarmed in the last 10 years. They would forget about that 170 lives lost. Not that we would ever want to minimize that, right? And they would think about the almost 100,000 lives that were taken by black on black violence in the last 10 years. 100,000? 170. What should we be focusing on more? What's the bigger problem? How about the fact that they continue to say that black people have the right to be able to live peaceful lives, thus we should defund the police, we should get rid of them because they're the biggest problem. They're the hunting prowlers. That's what they are, right? Yet virtually every single time you take money away from police departments and police officers, the first people to suffer are black people, minorities. You say you care about black lives, and you kick and scream for black lives when you take away every last protective mechanism that exists for people of color, or anybody else for that matter. And on top of that, you march and support and stand for the right of a black woman to kill her baby to the tune of 1,500 babies a day that are actually being killed in the mother's womb. Think about this. The childbearing population amongst black people, black women that can bear child in this country, 3%. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, 3%. 1, 2, 3. Yet that accounts for close to 50% of the babies that are being murdered every single day. You tell me, does that make sense? How wonderful is Black Lives Matter for black people? They don't care about black people. All they care about is furthering their Marxist ideals. You're a very small group of people, 3 founders, who are lesbian activists who only care about Marxism and furthering that cause, and that's by their own admission. So the further along Black Lives Matter gets, the worse off black people are. Now let's take it a step further. Hamas. And we're going to tie it together for just a second. Hamas doesn't care about Palestinians. Hamas has never cared about Palestinians. You know what Hamas is in the business of doing? Hamas is in the business of exploiting Palestinians so that they can get other people around the world to think about how horrible it is for them, even though they're the ones creating those conditions so that they can win over the media war. That's exactly what they're doing. Case in point, they've launched almost 5,000 missiles all over Israel, mostly from the Gaza strips. And of that 5,000, I said strips, Gaza strip. And of that 5,000 of those rockets that they've sent in to Israel to try to kill innocent people, in some cases targeting Palestinian neighborhoods, by the way, they choose, listen to this is crazy, but they choose to take, even though they know it's going to happen, all of these rockets and send them in and allow 500 of them, at least 500, to land back in their own neighborhoods because of misfiring. And the majority of the casualties that have taken place of the Palestinian population has been because of the actions of Hamas, not because of Israel. You know what else Black Lives Matter and Hamas has in common? What Black Lives Matter and Hamas will do, and they will do it every time without fail, is they will encourage you to walk away from any allegiance to the country in which they live. Black Lives Matter says America was fundamentally and foundationally racist from the beginning. It's all a racist construct, so destroy it and walk away from all of the guiding and founding principles of our forefathers. Which all that will do was ensure it will be the insurance policy to destroy liberty. What is Hamas doing? Walk away from any association you have with Israel. They should not be a state. Dismantle the Israeli state. That's what the Palestinian Authority does as well. I liken the Palestinian Authority to the Democratic Party, truth be told. It's really sad. Folks, I support Israel, tremendously support Israel, because I love Palestinians. If I cared about only Israelis and couldn't give a rip about Palestinians, then I would say, you know what? Heck, forget about it. I love Palestinians, which is why I support the nation of Israel as a state. And folks, I love everybody that God has put in my path, red and yellow, black and white, which is why I stand staunchly against organizations like Black Lives Matter, because what they want to do is they want to destroy the lives of black people. It's time that we open our eyes to look for what the truth is. If you ever get asked about the situation again, think of it like this. Hamas is like Black Lives Matter. That is the bottom line. That is exactly the bottom line. That is how it works, folks. And anytime somebody comes into the picture and wants to tell you something differently, just think of the facts. Oh, and by the way, one last thing. For all of these ignorant, foolish, crazy, out of their mind Hollywood movie stars that do not know their head from their rear when it comes to the region, do not let them tell you that Israel is not entitled to defending themselves because they have the greater weapons. That is absolutely absurd. I heard one of these ignorant fools say, oh, well, that's like bringing a knife to a gunfight. Have you seen how many people can die at the hands of a knife, even with the gun in their hand? Folks, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't matter how much better their defense or offense systems are. They have the right to defend themselves. That's the bottom line. One last thing. Genesis tells us that those who bless Israel, God will bless, and those who curse Israel, God is going to curse, and we need to be thinking about that. And by the way, if you really do care about black lives, if that's something that really matters to you, then stand against organizations like that would seek to destroy them through and through, because Black Lives Matter doesn't care about black people. They care about black people as much as Hamas cares about Palestinians. It's that simple. I know this is a longer video, but that's the way this one rolls, you guys. Don't ever forget it. Let's do what's right, and let's stand up for what's right. God bless you.